When the last eagle flies over the last.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Animation Pilgrimage, the show where Whitney and I take a look at every single theatrically released animated film in chronological order. I'm Tennille.
And I am Whitney.
Today, we are covering another large film. We covered Plague Dogs last time, and today we are covering The Last Unicorn.
Indeed, this was done by Rankin Bass and ITC and Topcraft of the USA, England, and Japan.
Yep.
Spoilers, all the animation was done in Japan.
Yeah, all the animation was done in Japan. A lot of the art direction and everything like that was done elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And the screenplay, which I think is probably one of the most interesting things about this film, the screenplay was written by the author of the book, The Last Unicorn, Peter S. Beagle.
Neat.
Yeah.
Well, the story's a little clunky. The
Okay.
pacing is not great.
Look, this is a film I appreciate more for the little things that are kind of interesting about it. It's a very beautiful film.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate the art direction here, especially in the first few scenes. The unicorn's forest is gorgeous, and they do some really, really beautiful shots with these, like, green and blue and purpley pink color palettes. Like, they're gorgeous. And the film is going for a very medieval tapestry kind of look.
Yeah.
And I think it captures that very well. Where I think the film falls a little flat is in its screenplay, in its audio balancing, and in its character animation.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of want to talk about all those things later, but I guess my general review of this film is that I think it's gorgeous, but I didn't grow up with this, so I'm not personally nostalgic for it. And just looking at it as a film, I'm like, this is really clunky in a lot of ways that make it not a great rewatch.
Yeah. I also did not grow up with this film, and yeah, it's just kind of clunky and bad. Like, again, it's pretty.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only thing that's, like, actively very good about this movie.
Yeah. Even the music, which a lot of people really like, I think is really bad and sung really poorly.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. This is
Other
trying
than-
to be, like, a grand musical adventure film, similar to, like, the golden age of Disney and stuff like that.
Oh, it's very reminiscent of, like, Sleeping Beauty in particular.
Oh, yeah. The problem is one, the songs have bad lyrics. Two, the people singing the songs generally cannot sing very well.
When it's the voice actors anyway.
Yeah, when it's the voice actors specifically for, like, the main characters and they're trying to sing, does not sound great.
The title song, I think, is absolutely the standout song here by a long shot.
Yeah, but that's sung by an actual band.
Yes.
Yeah, most every other song is not sung by a band and isn't great.
Well, and it doesn't do much for the story either.
Yeah.
Which is always a cardinal sin of using music in movies, but not really committing to a musical format story-wise.
Yeah. They're putting songs in here because you're supposed to have songs, but the songs do not do a super great job of progressing the plot. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem.
Anyway, speaking of the plot, do you want to give us a quick synopsis?
Let's do a plot. So, The Last Unicorn, unnamed, hears from a...
Oh, you're saying the unicorn is unnamed.
Yeah, The Last Unicorn finds out she's the last unicorn.
Uh-huh.
From a reference-spewing butterfly. I'm glad this was not a character that stayed in the whole movie, because the 1.5 minutes they were around was unbearable. And that's how the movie starts, really.
Almost incomprehensible.
Because it's literally just like 5 words of a song, and then moving on to another song, and then on to another song, and then maybe some poetry in there, but then another song, and another song, and another song.
And that's the point of the butterfly.
He's supposed to be nonsense and gibbery and just kind of
because he's a
free
butterfly.
Spirit. Yeah.
He's a butterfly, so he, like, can't really hold on to one thought for very long, and just picks up what other people say, and is like a poet because it's a butterfly and beautiful. And, like, I get that, but the presentation here is all wrong. Like, this movie pulls you in with all its charm and its whimsy of the art direction, and America
and the sad
is
melodramatic song.
Yeah, and
about the last
America is
unicorn.
singing, you know, The Last Unicorn, and it's gorgeous. And then there's, like, 2 riders riding through the wood, and they're talking about how, you know, the unicorn, there must be a unicorn living in this woods because the leaves never fall, and it never snows here, and, you know, be at peace, unicorn, guard your forest well, because you are the last of your kind. And, like, that's all grand and good and works very well, and then this butterfly comes in, and you're like, oh, right, I'm watching a Rankin Bass film.
Yeah, this butterfly comes in just spewing pop music from modern day, and I'm just like, okay. But thankfully, they are gone relatively soon. The only important thing he drops is that all the other unicorns were taken away by the Red Bull and just chased to the ends of the earth. So she is on a quest to find the other unicorns. So she goes on an adventure. On the adventure, she finds out that most humans are dumb and stupid and don't believe in unicorns, and therefore cannot see that she is a unicorn and thinks she's just a white horse. And then one night, she's captured by an illusionist, Mama Fortuna, who can see that she's a unicorn, but she knows the general public can't, so she illusions a fake horn onto her head. Because that's what she does. She has a freak show of mystical creatures
that are mostly just illusions.
Yeah, pretty much all illusions. A manticore? Nah, it's just an old lion. Some sort of satyr? Nah, that's a chimpanzee.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. The only other real thing in this little show that she has is a harpy.
Well, that's real.
That's real.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the unicorn who's real and the harpy who's real. Everything else is fake with illusions. One of Mama Fortuna's assistants is Schmendrick. What a name.
I mean, it's supposed to be like, he's no good. Yeah.
Schmendrick claims to be a real magician himself. He's not fake either, just like the unicorn. And so he frees her by unlocking her cage because his magic didn't do it.
Yeah.
So the unicorn goes around freeing all the poor animals stuck in their cages. And this includes the harpy, which then kills Mama Fortuna and her other assistant.
I do actually really like the writing here. And I can only assume, you know, we already talked about how the author of the book wrote the screenplay, and I think the author did a really good job in translating this relationship between Mama Fortuna and the harpy into the story here. Because I really like how the unicorn talks about how you shouldn't cage creatures, immortal creatures like us. And Mama Fortuna says, oh, I know that my death lies in that cage.
She's like, yeah, I know that harpy will kill me.
But that harpy will always know that I captured it and caged it. And that will be my immortality. And, like, I think that's
a really cool idea.
That's metal. Like, that is sick.
It's like, even for just a time, I captured an immortal being.
Yeah. And not just one, but 2.
2, yeah.
Yeah.
And they will forever remember that I did that.
Right. Anyway, the harpy gets out and eats Mama Fortuna.
Yeah. So the next thing that happens is they run into some bandits, which Schmendrick then fools with an illusion of Robin Hood. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much all that happens here. We go on, but we are joined by the only gal of that group of bandits, Molly Grew, who also can see the unicorn because she, in her own words, she's like, I've wanted to see a unicorn since I was a small child. What young girl doesn't want to see a unicorn? And she's also like crying and angry and like, how dare you come to me now?
I actually really like this scene as well. I think this is my favorite scene in the movie, actually. Mm-hmm. I just love how she's kind of waiting for Schmendrick to show up, and then when he does and the unicorn comes in, she sees it, immediately recognizes it for what it is, and she's like, how dare you? Damn you! Damn you for coming so late when I am now this, and I'm not a young maiden anymore. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, can't relate, never really been a horse person or a unicorn person, but like, you know, I just really like the emotion here and how it's kind of it flips your expectations on what you expect her reaction to be to seeing a unicorn. Mm-hmm. And she's just very like upfront about her emotions and feelings about it. And then like she forgives the unicorn and asks to come along on the journey.
Yeah.
Which is
well, she doesn't ask. She just says she's coming.
Yeah, she just says she's coming. Which, like, yeah, more power to you, I guess. But, like, why really do you need to be here?
She doesn't.
I mean, it's kind of the same thing with Schmendrick. It's like, why have we put together this merry band of misfits?
Because we need more characters for people to attach themselves to, I guess, that won't really do anything.
Because the unicorn is like kind of too high and mighty to
have human emotions and stuff.
Right,
because
for the audience to relate
she lives forever. She does not know the concept of regret. She does not regret anything.
She has no regrets.
No regrets. Not a single one. So the place that they're going is to the country of King Haggard, because supposedly he's the one that has the Red Bull. So they get to the country, and the Red Bull comes out and attacks the unicorn, trying to hurt her somewhere. So Schmendrick turns the unicorn into a human lady.
Yes.
Who they then dub Lady Amalthea.
Yeah.
And this is my favorite part of the movie.
Uh-huh.
Is she wakes up from being turned into a human, and she's immediately like, I can feel this body dying.
Dying all around me. Yeah.
Yeah, just suddenly hit with a non-immortal body, and she's just like shocked.
Freaking out.
Freaking out and stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good line.
And Molly is like, what have you done? What have you done?
You fucking idiot.
Yeah.
You're gonna break her psyche doing this.
Well, and they very much imply right away that, like, turning her human, her living the experience of a mortal life, has irreparably damaged her as an immortal being and as a unicorn. Mm-hmm. And even if they manage to change her back, she's never going to be like her kind ever again.
Yeah, she will never be... Yeah. She can now feel regrets.
Regrets!
Regrets! So anyways, they go to King Haggard, and they entrust themselves in his service as a court magician and a cook and lady who's just there.
She stares wistfully out at the ocean.
Uh-huh. King Haggard has a son, Prince Lear, and the prince falls madly in love with Amalthea because she's pretty.
Right.
And he's trying everything he can to woo her. He goes out and slays dragons, and she's just like, why would you do that? And then he feels bad. And it's actually kind of cute because he keeps going to the cook, Molly, to be like, how do I get this girl to like me? And she's like, well, have you tried looking into her interests? Obviously, she doesn't like you running around killing stuff. And like, I think that's a cute little dynamic. Again, there's some good ideas in this movie, for sure. It's just, I think the overall presentation and pacing is a bit clunky.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it more when we're done with the story summary. I think it's more a problem of, I think that the screenplay could have used another pass at it or some collaboration with an actual screenwriter. Mm-hmm. But I think that the author having such a huge hand in writing the screenplay is really neat, and we really do get right to the, like, core of what these interactions between characters should look like, and you immediately get what the dynamic is supposed to be there, and that's great. But I think as a screenplay, it is a little clunky. Mm-hmm. Anyways,
Amalthea, spending time in a human body, slowly, actually feels like rather quickly, forgets that she was ever a unicorn to begin with, and has almost completely turned human. And they're like, well, if this happens, she'll never be able to turn back into a unicorn.
If I was a woman...
Now that
I'm a woman...
One of the many songs. Oof. Anyways, they're tipped off by a cat that there is a secret passage with blah, 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 doesn't matter.
A cat with a peg leg and a patch eye and a pirate accent.
Yeah, for some reason. Tips them off how to get to the Cavern of the Red Bull, which they go into and do that. Then the Red Bull attacks them, and Schmendrick turns Amalthea back into a unicorn. And by this time, Lear is caught up on what's going on, and he's like, cool, whatever, I'm here to help you however I can, because I'm a good guy. Uh-huh. Even if my dad is evil and he's the reason that all the unicorns are gone.
Right.
Because King Haggard used the Red Bull to round up all the unicorns and push them into the sea underneath his castle so that he can look at them whenever he wants, because they're the prettiest thing and the only thing that has ever made him happy. And so he is keeping all the unicorns to himself.
Yes.
There is a confrontation on the beach between Amalthea Unicorn, who is back to being a unicorn, and the bull, and she chases him into the ocean.
Well, she only does that after...
Oh, right. Lear is like, can't you do anything, wizard? And he's like, that's not my job. That's the job for the hero. And Lear's like, right, I'm a hero. So he stands in front of the bull and dies.
Basically.
I got this. He puts his arms out. Whomp. Dead.
I mean, he's not dead. He's just like...
No, he's dead.
Oh.
They literally say that he's dead.
Okay.
So he dies.
He McHeckin dies after doing basically nothing. But the whole point is it's like a true love sacrifice. And because the unicorn felt love, she is now able to fight back. Something that the rest of her kind could not do.
Because regrets.
She
regrets not spending her mortal life with this human.
Yes.
So she fights back against the bull and chases him into the ocean, and all the other unicorns run free and they're gone, and the castle collapses for absolutely no reason. Magic. King Haggard dies, and Amalthea Unicorn brings Lear back to life, and he's like, I was dead. And she has one last interaction with Schmendrick and's like, I now know regrets, and I don't blame you for what you did. And then she leaves and
goes back to her forest,
and Schmendrick and Molly live happily ever after, and Lear, I don't know, he just kind of gets dropped.
It kind of implies that he goes on a quest to go find her again.
Or something, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the movie.
Yep.
So again, there's some really good ideas here. I don't think this is a bad movie by any means.
Yeah, overall, I actually really like the idea of the story. I love the conflict of being a immortal being turned mortal and then feeling things that only mortals can feel, reverting back to your immortal self and still carrying those feelings with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very bittersweet ending, and there's a lot of like really interesting story bits here and there. Like I said, with Mama Fortuna, I really liked that. I think the stuff with Molly is interesting. I think that like King Haggard being just this miserable king who like tries to collect happiness for himself in the form of like people or objects or mystical unicorns, but you know, not looking inward and seeing that he's miserable because he's just a miserable sack of shit. Like, I think that's all just interesting stuff. The biggest problem with this film, I think, is the presentation of all these ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest problems it has isn't even like the screenplay or the other stuff. A lot of it is the character animation. And like, I don't know what kind of notes or how good of a translation the Japanese animation team had when animating this, because they clearly can animate well.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the animation in this movie isn't bad just from like a technical standpoint. It's bad because it's bad character animation, and you don't get the feelings that are coming out of the character through their body language, through their acting.
Yeah, the voice acting does not match the physical acting that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like, these are some gorgeous character designs that are, you know, that could have been animated well, I think, had the Japanese studio gotten better notes on what was supposed to be happening.
Yeah.
Like, there's just some miscommunication happening here. For sure.
And, you know...
Because obviously, like, the best animated stuff is, like, the fight sequences and the creature
Yeah, because
designs.
they're not trying to draw humans. They can just draw these large, fiery bulls and unicorns fighting each other and stuff.
Well, I mean, the notes for those scenes is, like...
Fight.
And, like, make the big menacing creature menacing. Okay, that's pretty easy. Like, that's... We got that.
Mm-hmm.
It's when it's trying to get into more of these, like, nuanced character emotions that it's not connecting.
Yeah. And you know, this has kind of always been a problem with Rankin Bass, because they always... All of their animation is always done by a Japanese studio, and there is a disconnect between Japanese and American sentimentality around acting and emotions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And with the language barrier there and stuff like that, it makes sense why the animation is not how we would expect it to be for an American-made production.
Mm-hmm.
It's just frustrating.
Yeah, it's frustrating because you can see in your mind how these characters should be acting.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the kind of vocal performance they're giving.
Yes.
And that's not happening.
Yeah. But no, Rankin Bass has to go with the cheap option of exporting it out across seas to just make it as cheap as possible to produce their animation.
And then I can only assume, not even doing that well, by, you know, making sure that you're talking with the studio and being clear about what kind of direction the animation should be taking.
Yeah. So, to be clear, I do not blame the Japanese studio here.
Yeah.
I do not blame... I can only assume it's
Topcraft.
Yeah, I do not blame Topcraft for the animation here. I blame Rankin Bass specifically.
Yeah.
For not being clear and just shipping it out across seas for ease of their budget.
Yeah. And again, I want to say that while I think this is a really, really special case of the screenplay being written by the author, Peter S. Beagle, I do think that not necessarily hinders the movie, but like, this is really impressive for someone who's not a screenwriter writing a screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
But a screenwriter co-writing this with him would have been appreciated.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think that there are some elements that I don't know if Beagle just kind of like assumes the audience has already read the book, or there's stuff that just isn't set up so that the payoff is satisfying. Like when we meet the brigands and we meet Molly for the first time, there's no setup to what her emotional payoff with meeting the unicorn is going to be like.
Yeah, it just suddenly happens.
Exactly. And I think if a screenwriter was here, they would go, okay, well, this is where we meet Molly, so we should have her say some lines here and maybe here that will foreshadow how she's going to react here. Or maybe, like, subvert your expectations on how you think she's going to react here. But either way, it's going to be a setup, and then this will be our payoff.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of thing is very common in this movie, is that there's a lot of payoff with not a lot of setup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then when it comes to the songs, the song composer was Jimmy Webb, and the songs not performed by the voice actors were performed by the British American rock band America.
Yeah. So, like, the titular song, The Last Unicorn, is done by them. And I think that's, like, the only song in this entire movie that I can say was good.
Yeah. Like, I'd choose to listen to this on my own.
Yeah. Every other song in this is, like, not great.
Not great.
Like, of the other songs in this movie, Now That I'm a Woman is the only one that I want to see anything done with. And that's specifically, I want to see someone redo this song as, like, a coming out trans narrative.
Oh, yeah. I get that. I get behind that.
But that's it. All the other songs are bad. Like, Prince Lear sings a love ballad, and it is terrible because he cannot sing.
Well, okay, we should talk about who's the voices in this movie.
Yeah, there's quite a few...
It has a star-studded cast.
Yeah, there's quite a few people that you will recognize.
Mm-hmm. We got Angela Lansbury, who I believe plays Molly.
No, she plays Mama.
Oh, Mama Fortuna.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And then we have...
King Haggard is Christopher Lee.
Yeah, King Haggard is Christopher Lee, and he gives a banger performance.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, absolutely. Banger performance from Christopher Lee, unsurprising. And then we have Jeff Bridges as
Lear.
Prince Lear. And
it is so wooden and bad.
It is certainly Jeff Bridges.
It is very bad.
It's real stiff. Yeah. I don't have a whole lot of good things to say about it. But also, like, the whole writing of the love story is very rushed and doesn't get enough time.
Oh, for sure.
And then with the songs trying to take the place of, like, development, they don't do a good enough job to convey that either, and they're not performed very well, so it leaves a lot to be desired.
So, I am no screenwriter.
Right.
I am not.
Uh-huh.
But if I were to take a crack at this story, you know what I would do?
What?
I would start with them arriving at the castle.
Oh, start the movie there?
Yeah. I think that would be a stronger...
And then do the whole, like, well, I bet you wonder how I got into this predicament.
No.
Let me go back and tell you.
Absolutely not.
Not that specifically.
No,
but,
no.
just, like,
No.
eventually it would...
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I think there's, like, multiple plots going on in this movie. Mm-hmm. And I think the most interesting plot that goes on, for me personally, is the dynamic of the immortal being stuck as a human for X amount of time, which in my version of the movie would be the entire runtime of the movie. So the movie is much more about the interpersonal relationship between Amalthea and Schmendrick and Molly and Lear and Haggard just leering at them in the distance. And stuff like that. I think that would make a much stronger film.
You said Haggard leering?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, absolutely I did. Because that's what he does. He just leers at them in the background most of the time.
Oh, also this movie has a tree booby scene.
Right. Yeah, it does, for no reason, and they never talk about it after it happens. Yeah. Yeah, Schmendrick is tied to a tree by the bandits, and then he turns the tree into an animate object.
Well, a woman on accident, kind of. A woman tree.
Yeah, and she's like...
Bustily, boobily squishing him.
Yeah, and talking about how he'll live on forever because she's a tree and she'll remember him forever. Which is immortality, talking about that again.
Yeah.
But then the unicorn frees him, and then it turns back into a tree, and they never acknowledge it again.
No.
Anyways, join us back here next time as we move on to the next movie that we're going to be watching. We are watching Heidi's Song, which is by Hanna-Barbera of the USA.
Wow. All right, see you then.